The passaggio is a really difficult creature. It gives us trouble all the time. It doesn't matter how long you've been singing. It's never going away. It's always an issue. You just need to learn how to manage it. And I want to talk a little bit about something that profoundly affects how your passaggio plays out. Hi and welcome to today's video. My name is Freya, professional singer and vocal coach from Germany. Let's talk about the passaggio today. So the passaggio is the area in your voice where you have a transition. Some people talk about up to 12 passaggi in the voice. It depends on how you want to look at it. There are certainly transition points at which you have to change placement and change the approach, but there certainly is one really main passaggio and where your actual main break, your big break happens in the voice, and that is the transition between your heavy register and your light register. That has nothing to do with the actual sound. You can still sing in head voice, which is called the light register, and still be very loud and heavy, but it's just due to the fact that in the heavier register, more mass of your vocal cords vibrates, and in your head voice, because the vocal cords are actually tightened and lengthened, the higher frequencies cause them to be tighter, and then it's a smaller area that actually vibrates in order to create that faster vibration and the faster movement of the vocal cords. So the chest mechanism and the head mechanism are two main things, and there is a shift that happens when you go from one to the other. There's an actual physical big shift in your larynx. There is a tilt where muscles that were involved in your chest register now are not as strong anymore, and they kind of give the power to the other muscles. So the TA muscles, the thyroarytenoid muscles, are the ones that are more prevalent in your heavy chest register. Then when you sing higher and higher, and as your vocal cords do need to get stretched in order to get tighter and tenser, your cricothyroids are involved. The larynx actually makes a little tilt or a bigger tilt depending on how you operate, so that you can elongate those vocal cords more easily. That's why singing in head voice is much easier when you go higher above a certain point in your voice. However, that break between those two registers and that area, that passaggio as we call it, where you have that overlap between the two. I mean, there are pitches you can sing either in head voice or in chest voice. That gives us trouble because we need to decide, how do we transition? Our voice usually looks for the path of least resistance. So when you go higher in your chest voice, your voice wants to flip over into head voice, like la 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 la, because it is just easier. At the same time, when you go really low with head voice, your voice really wants to flip over into chest voice. La, 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 la. So much easier. And to manage that is really difficult. I want to specifically talk about your placement and how that affects the passaggio. The way you shape your pharynx, that entire throat space as we call it, including what your soft palate does and what's opposite on the bottom and into your mouth cavity, that placement profoundly has an effect on how your passaggio plays out. When you're heavier in your chest voice, when you're more narrow or more wide in your throat space, in that pharyngeal space, it really has an effect. Let me demonstrate. When you're really narrow, that break is not as strong. And also when you're breathy, that break is not as strong. Let me demonstrate. La 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 la. So first of all, when you're breathy, what it actually means, your vocal cords don't close that tightly. Remember those muscles I told you about, those TA muscles that are responsible for the heaviness, for keeping the vocal cords in the shortened, thickened state. They are prevalent. They're working harder. Now, when I lighten up my voice and not closing the vocal cords that tightly, I am not using those muscles as much, meaning that it is not as fully in chest voice. Yes, of course, you're either in chest or head voice, but that's why we call it the mix also, because you're kind of in a very undefined state, because it's not that these muscles are keeping the vocal cords in that short and thickened state and the entire vocal cords are vibrating fully. Just because you're relaxing the vocal cords and making it more breathy, just that lack of full vocal cord closure causes you to not be fully in one or the other register, which means that break is not as heavy and abrupt. La 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 la. See how it plays out? If I went heavier, there would have to be a sudden flip. La. Your voice wants to have a sudden shift because now these muscles are fully working. Now it gets too high for the entirety of the vocal cord to vibrate when it's really, really strong. Now we need the cricothyroid muscles, and now we need to actually tilt so that we can elongate the muscles or those vocal folds. So it's a very important concept. When you have the tendency to be very, very breathy, you might not feel that break play out, and therefore you might not ever really learn how to navigate really well around it. It just kind of happens and you don't know where you're at. It also causes you to not really have a strong voice because you're not using the register to its full extent, no matter whether it's the chest register or the head register. Also, your placement does make a difference. Remember, this is your voice box, and it's right below where that pharyngeal space begins. When you make that pharyngeal space very, very narrow, it's almost like the larynx, it's constricted in its movement. So, la 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 la. It also affects the way your break plays out. You may not be able to feel it as strongly. You may not be able to control it as well, just because it's almost like you're choking off that mechanism. So keep that in mind. Having a nice open pharyngeal space to where, you have that overtone quality, the brilliance, the brightness in your tone. Even if you're a bass, there are still overtones and you need some amount of opening back there. It does have a profound effect. When I just sing nasally and breathy, I'm never gonna have a strong voice. But when I sing with an open throat, I can now operate my chest register so much better. And my head voice. So keep that in mind as you practice around your passaggio, and remember that singing is very much a muscular process. There are many muscles involved, and that you need to train them to coordinate. Give the video a thumbs up if you also need to work on your passaggio and your transition. I don't think there's a single person who doesn't. If you think you don't ever have to work on it, I don't think so. So thank you for watching. Check out all my free resources that I have on my website at masteryourvoice.tv. I have a free 5-day belting challenge. I have a free 7 days to perfect support. I have a free 30-minute audio warm-up program that also comes with a sheet, like a PDF you can print out, that has a checklist. Once you know the exercises, all you have to do is check off the points so that you know, okay, today I've done my full vocal workout and I've covered all my bases. And if you have not read my book, get on Amazon and get my book, Master Your Voice. It's really going to motivate you. And I just talk a lot about my experience and all of my teaching experience. I give you technical tips as well as motivational substance here. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. And until then, always keep a song in your heart and always keep on singing.
Makes me feel sad for the rest.